Fox News alert, former President Trump just took the stage in Arizona at his first rally since the debate. We're keeping an eye on that. In the meantime, underestimate Trump at your own peril. The liberal media seems to be forgetting the lessons of 2016. After fawning over Kamala after the debate, acting like the former president got hit with a knockout punch, check out this clown's reaction.
What a smackdown. Harris ran Trump over with a truck. It was fun. Yeah. I'm still giddy thinking about it. She tore out your heart, showed it to you while it was still beating, then ate it on national television. And now she would like seconds.
But Politico is trying to warn them about the, quote, danger of underestimating Donald Trump and how the polls always underestimate the strength of Trump's support. And while the elite pundits say Kamala won the debate, swing state voters in Michigan and Pennsylvania say it isn't enough. Watch this.
I did vote for Hillary, and I cried when she did not win.
Okay. Then what happened?
And then I just felt like he did a good job. I liked the fact that he was not a politician.
I talked to 20 voters. Not one of them was undecided.
Wow.
Not one.
Not one. And headlines come and go, but let me tell you this. Support for former President Trump is real and resilient. I encounter that everywhere I went.
When facts come to facts, my life was better when Trump was in office. The economy was higher, inflation was lower.
All right, Dana, did the media not learn from 2016 not to jump to conclusions when it comes to Donald Trump?
You mean when they had to go out, they got assigned to go out into America and do actual reporting to find out, wow, how did we miss this? And then they almost did it again in 2020. Yes, I think that they do. I am curious about one thing. Jessica might know the answer to this, but the pollsters definitely underestimated him or didn't get enough people to actually be willing to answer the phone and to say their truth about who they were voting for. So that happened in 2016, a little bit in 2020. I don't know if it's happening now. It could be. I don't know if they've factored that in. And so maybe it's more real now. I'm not exactly sure. But when I spoke today to the Republican Senate candidate in Wisconsin, Eric Hovde, he believes that the Kamala Harris switcheroo with Biden gave Kamala Harris a little bit of a bump in Wisconsin for just a little bit of time, and that's not lasting. And that he really thinks that they are underestimating not only Trump, but also his support. So I'm not exactly sure, but I appreciated Major Garrett and other reporters who have gone outside of the Beltway and outside of this Acela corridor from New York to Washington, D.C. and go out and actually talk to people. I think what he said is something really interesting. He said he talked to 20 people. They're not undecided. I don't think there are that many undecideds. I think there are people who are unwilling to state or maybe undecided on whether to vote, not who to vote for.
You know, Jesse, isn't it interesting in talking about Major Garrett, you know, how you've got the fantasy media like, you know, this is it, she took his heart out and all this other stuff. And yet Major Garrett goes out and he talks to people and he says, you know, the Trump support basically is etched in stone.
Well, one guy's a comedian and the other guy's a reporter. It's like me and Greg, you know? One guy knows something, the other guy's just trying to be funny. I am pretty confident that Donald Trump is going to win this election. And when I lose my confidence, I will tell you. I will say it's official, I'm nervous. And I'm not anywhere close to that. And you can believe I will tell you I'm nervous because I've been nervous before and I've shared those nerves. But I feel great about this election. The last debate was a knockout, so I think people thought Trump could just knock this woman out again and be like, okay, off to the races. He didn't. There was no knockout, so now everyone's like, okay, it's going to be competitive. We're going to have to work for it, but the fundamentals are still in our favor. Every single battleground is either tied or he's up 0.5 or she's up 0.5. But if you go in tied with Donald Trump, he's going to win. And they know that, and anybody smart that knows that too. I'm a little annoyed now that they have more offices in Wisconsin. This is new information. And now I'm remembering.
It's not new information to people paying attention.
Okay, well, I'm not in the battlegrounds, Jessica. and if I was, I'd be doing a lot better job than the Trump campaign. They had to spend hundreds of millions of dollars on lawyers because you guys were arresting him and prosecuting him on BS charges. If that money was better spent, then this would probably be a 49-state landslide victory, which I'm not predicting at all, because I learned my lesson with the red wave.
I knew it. Jessica, you know, Kamala's numbers now are lower than Hillary's were in 2016 and lower than Biden's were in 2020. And you still think, you know, that
that we're underdogs,
fantasy,
but we could win?
Yeah.
Sure. We're underdogs that could win. To Jesse's point about the lawfare, I don't think that the voters are happy that Donald Trump is using their campaign contributions to fund his legal team.
I don't know about that. I think the voters, the voters recognize that it's the weaponization that Merrick Garland said it wasn't. But go ahead.
All the grand juries we whizzed up in
Honey, I've been in charge of grand juries. I know grand juries.
I know grand juries. I've dated grand juries. Okay. We're not underestimating anything. It's the same thing, and I don't think that you can see any evidence of it in how we're approaching the mechanics of the election or even how cautious Kamala Harris is being. If she thought that this was a slam dunk situation, she'd be going absolutely everywhere and laughing in everyone's face and saying, oh, you think people are gonna vote for that buffoon? That guy who says, I have concepts of plans, that guy who it gets so mad because she mentioned people leaving his rallies that he spent the next hour and 15 minutes with smoke coming out of his head. That's what she would be doing if we were arrogant about this. Nothing is being taken for granted. And to the point about the Michigan undecided voters or the lack of undecided voters, there were a number of focus groups after the debate. Washington Post had 24 people, 22 of them said Kamala Harris was the one who won the debate. CNN had similar margins, and we had a snap poll from CNN, a snap poll from here at Fox with huge margins for her winning. Does that translate to Kamala Harris is going to be the next president? I don't know. But it means she had a very good night.
Go ahead, Greg, wrap it up.
It's totally understandable that Colbert would be fangirling. They went from a corpse to a cackler. They should be. It's a relief. It's a relief. They might have a chance. But, you know, politics isn't real life. If this was real life, they'd be embarrassed. Right? Again, it's like if the other players are hitting balls from a pitcher and yours is hitting it from a tee, I wouldn't be bragging. There was an old phrase among the right, the facts don't care about your feelings. From the left's perspective about Trump, your feelings don't care about your facts. It's like, I feel that Trump is mean, he's arrogant, he's boorish. I don't care that there was a better economy, there was lower unemployment, we had lower crime, they had a closed border. My feelings. When you listen to that woman speak, she was talking facts. I don't think the feelings over facts thing works with the undecided people anymore. They're undecided because maybe they were liberal and things aren't going well for them. And last, you say, Trump smoke coming out of his head. There's no difference between Trump at the Kamala debate or Biden. I went and looked at different ones, at different scenes. His tone, his expression, his command, his insistent tone, all the same. It's not really about Trump at all. It's about that she was not Joe. So he perhaps should have adjusted to her. But the benefit and flaw of Trump is that he treats everybody the same. He doesn't see Kamala as, you know, a African-American woman or Trump as an old white male. He just sees them as the competition, and he doesn't modulate. Maybe he should, but then that wouldn't make him Trump.
Well, she's new to being black anyway.
That is true. Finally, you admit it, Jessica.
All right.
Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.